Talk about Republicans being creeps, okay? This is a 14-year-old girl.
Hi, Charlie. I'm Addie, and I'm 14. I'm a freshman in high school, and I was wondering, as someone who has like a different opinion on college, what would you say the pros and cons are? Because I'm interested in political journalism, and what would your advice be?
Yes.
Oh no, women having an opinion? Bro, Charlie Kirk is not going to stand for that, bro.
Let me also speak to some of the young ladies here in high school where your top, if you are, who's here where your top priority is get married and have kids? Raise your hand. Okay. Interestingly, I think there is an argument to bring back the MRS degree. And no, seriously.
That's the MRS as in Mrs. Okay, so you go and you try to become a wife and you're a baby making machine. Okay, that's what MRS means.
And
Mrs.
just be clear, that's why you're going to college, right? Don't lie to yourself. Like, don't like, oh, I'm studying sociology. No, you're not. We know why you're here. And that's okay, actually. And that's a really good reason to go to college, actually.
Girl, bro.
Especially an SEC school. Like, you will find a husband if you have the intent to find a husband.
It's just so crazy. A 14-year-old girl. You know, some of our top like biomedical researchers are women, right? Like women are very high on the intellectual scale. Women have a lot more emotional regulation. Women have a higher IQ than men on average. Like women are built for college and really intense studies. Sure, men can do more jobs that are like physically loaded, but like women in general, there's a lot of aspirations, especially in the modern world for women. But like Charlie Kirk wants a world where men win by default. So he would never tell this girl to go and actually, you know, chase dreams of any kind. Just your dream is being a housewife, barefoot pregnant. That's all Charlie Kirk sees this 14-year-old girl as.
At Ole Miss. Like, it's just going to happen, okay? Or wherever. Yeah, there you go, see? Or at University of Alabama. But there you go. But I always laugh. And by the way, we should bring back the celebration of the MRS degree, which is, no, serious. I mean, if you think about it, like I say college is a scam, but if you're going to find your life partner, like that's actually a really good reason to go to college. You have a bunch of people that are single, you know, they're at the prime of their, you know, let's just say attractiveness. The dating pool is as robust as
It's a 14-year-old girl, and you're talking about like a breeding grounds on college, about like a peak attractiveness, bro. She's 14, bro. She's 14. Oh, wait a second. Charlie Kirk wants to go back to a time where America was great, make America great again, back when these kind of marriages were allowed. So I understand Charlie Kirk is probably, I don't know, is he scouting this 14-year-old out? I know the Epstein party's a little bit crazy nowadays, but come on, bro.
And they all live together over a 4-year period. Like you don't get much better than that, okay? It doesn't get better after college there. And so yeah, you could go learn some stuff. That's fine, I guess, or whatever. Just don't listen to your professors. But that actually was the reason why a lot of women went to college in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and it worked for a lot.
By the way, in college, for even biology, any STEM, pretty much any field, women do like vastly outperform men in like a vast majority of subjects. When it comes to master degrees, doctoral degrees, GPA, career outcomes, being able to stay on track and be able to focus, to be in a setting where you can actually be an effective intellectual worker. Women do have very high success numbers. It's just kind of how if you want to talk about biological essentialism, like many conservatives do, like man, masculine, pick up rock, testosterone. If you talk smart, you're feminine. You're a feminine if you talk smart, you're feminine. It's like, yeah, I mean, part of that probably is a little bit true when it comes to women. Women are more intelligent on average. I'm just saying. You can go against all fact and logic if you want, but you're just being a weenie. You're being a big old weenie.
Marriage rates have plummeted since that. So
she's like, I'm a very ambitious 14-year-old. All right, Charlie, give me advice. He's like, get pregnant, bro. He looks at her. He just sees a breeding machine. It's kind of crazy. It's actually very crazy. Like, give her actual advice. You don't gotta be just completely weird, bro. It's just so crazy how conservatives see a 14-year-old girl, and the first thing they think about is, how can I get her in a position where she is a housewife? You know, they see no role for women in society other than being a housewife and just like being someone who's going to be cooking, cleaning, doing the dishes, because they feel like men should be dominating every area, making all decisions everywhere. And Donald Trump alone shows the emotional deregulation of men in power. He's the most pampered little sissy baby pants in the world.
Hi, so my name is Paige, and this is my twin sister, Ivy.
Wow,
Alex.
okay.
Okay.
We have 2 older sisters that are also IVF.
Okay.
So this is about IVF, of course. So I'm particularly neutral on the topic. I don't want to have like a forced opinion because like my entire family's kind of become a product of IVF.
Are you guys surrogacy too, or just IVF?
Just IVF.
Oh, just
Yeah,
IVF.
just IVF. But I watch your videos. And so I've noticed that in one of your videos, you do mention that you are okay with IVF, but you're morally against it. Is that true?
Yeah, it's a little bit deeper than that, but
Okay, he's okay with IVF, but morally against it, because when you do IVF, you kind of have a bunch of like cells, and you see if they take to each other to produce like a fertilized egg that is healthy and able to be implanted. So like a bunch of other fertilized eggs can be kind of discarded. So like religious people don't like that because many different eggs that are technically together. So I guess conception, where the the eggs and sperm are joined, those little guys are thrown out in favor of the good one that they actually use or whatever. So it's something along those lines for why Christians who believe that abortion is murder would also think IVF is murder too.
I have a lot of problems with IVF, albeit while acknowledging the fruit. I'm glad you're both alive.
Thank you.
And so that must be celebrated. So it's I'll explain the difficulty, but please continue.
Okay, my part 1 of my question is just, as someone who was conceived through IVF, why should I also be morally against it?
Good question. Okay, so as a pro-lifer, first and foremost, we have to have an issue with the discarded fertilized eggs that happen during IVF. That's why you guys are twins.
Yep.
Is because during your creation process, if I can be provocatively blunt, you lost a lot of your siblings.
Yes.
Right? Am I correct in saying that?
So for our older sisters, they had 6 embryos in their batch. 2 came out, of course, but for us, there were 3, and then 2 came out.
Yeah, and so that's my first.
The only people that would intuitively say that you're losing siblings is if like your parent had a miscarriage or something, or a stillbirth, or whatever it might be. Or what's that one pregnancy called where it gets stuck? It gets it. What's the pregnancy? It's something introphic. It's the word. I'm not gonna look it up. It has the it gets implanted in the tube, in the tube instead of in we're supposed to be planted. What is that called, dude? What is that one pregnancy called? Ectopic. Okay, I had the right rhymes and syllables in my brain. Thank you.
Problem is that it definitionally is saying like we're gonna discard life.
But yeah, you would never say like, oh, those 2 cells that came together randomly is now a human life. Like, okay, we have a sperm cell and an egg. They touched. That's a human. That's a human. If you destroy that thing, it's now murder. People intuitively know that makes no sense. But when there's a process further along, then it becomes like, oh, I lost siblings. So religious people usually reserve like religious ceremonies for burials for situations like that, and even people that are anti-IVF would not have like funerals for the aborted, or not aborted, but the fertilized eggs that are not used or whatever.
To get to life,
Yeah.
I have a problem with that. So
I do agree, but in a certain way, so in a certain way, those embryos, like, say they weren't going to become anyways, but at least we were trying because they were going to be raised in a house where we are pro-life and we really wanted to be able to have kids and cherish that. But by taking that loss, they were able to have at least us out of the 3. At least they could have the 1. So it's kind of, I don't know where I'm going with that.
I
but
understand what you're saying. So there's a pro-life way to do IVF, which is only implant the eggs of which the children that you actually want to raise. And so, by the way, you have a lower likelihood of working because in your case, it would be maybe 2 or 3. For example, the way that the IVF doctor will sell it is like, look, here's 6 embryos. You'll be lucky if 1 or 2 implant to the uterine wall. Let's see what happens. Now, in certain cases, 4 implant to the uterine wall and you get quadruplets, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Which is what happens. I find that to be a little bit creepy, to be honest, that a doctor can kind of call shots on what life is going to live and not.
So it's creepy to do that, but the woman in Georgia whose dead body was kept alive by medical equipment and tubes going all around, being forcefully kept alive when her brain is dead, a tube in her heart, a tube in every area of her body, oxygen, everything, pumping her body to keep the body alive because she was pregnant. The Georgia law, the dystopian Georgia law, where that poor woman, brain dead, her family had no say. She was forced to be kept alive to give the pregnancy or to give birth. Her dead, lifeless body kept open as an incubator for human beings. That's not weird. Those Republican policies are not weird. But apparently IVF is weird to Charlie Kirk. That's kind of crazy.
Not live, and I find that to be directly contradictory to my pro-life stance. The Last Rodeo, Angel Studio. The Last Rodeo, only in theaters. Let me go to my second point, though, which makes it even more difficult. I think it's a human rights violation if there are millions of fertilized eggs just sitting in freezers right now. Those are human lives. If we're pro-life, we believe those are human lives, and they're just kind of in freezers right now. So I have a problem with that. But I don't deny the fruit of how amazing people can be a result of it. Third, though, and I think this is most important, there's a great book called Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, which I encourage everyone to check out. In Brave New World, he hypothesized in the first chapter that there will be a day where human beings can be created without sex. And he wrote about in very vivid novel form what is wrong with that. So IVF is actually the 180 opposite of birth control. So birth control is sex without life. IVF is life without sex. So it's the exact opposite.
That's the thing. It's a thing conservatives do. Conservatives are really good at just like taking pretty complex and nuanced topics and boiling them down to really emotional slogans. So like, oh, birth control and IVF are opposites because one is like life and then one is like death without life. It's just like.
So, and here's my final problem with IVF, and it's actually in a pro-IVF way. The people who do IVF are actually the most pro-life people because they want babies. Exactly. They're the last people that would walk into an abortion clinic.
Exactly.
So further complicating this very big issue. So would I want to make it illegal? No, but I have serious humane issues with that. I also think it's like the further Frankenstein monster kind of like we are going to control nature. Like we're resurrecting old species of dire wolves, like we're doing gene editing of CRISPR. I don't think we should play games with nature as if we are God Almighty. I think that's a terrible idea. I think that's how you get the worst civilizations. So all that to say, the last thing is second.
So we should not get treated for cancer or diabetes or chronic pain or pretty much anything because that would go against what Charlie Kirk considers to be natural, apparently. How far do you take that? I can't wear glasses. I mean, who would have thought, like hundreds of years ago, the idea we would wear metal frames on our faces to give us supervision, okay, would be so out of the ordinary. Or wearing a smartwatch, or going on a live stream with a microphone debating people about politics. All this stuff, all right, was never considered to be normal. And now Charlie Kirk can just make his own determination on what he considers to be normal out of all this.
Into cancer, the worst thing a human being can
Again, though, conservatives are just all vibes and emotion based at that point.
Suffer with mentally is infertility. It's a proven fact. It creates more depression, more anxiety. So there's no easy answer to that. So my advice to pro-life couples that want to do it, try to push back on the doctor and say, we're going to trust God, and we only want to implant the embryos that we would be comfortable raising. Do not act as if it's like a roulette table. Like, look, we're going to lose some of them, and I know we're not going to raise all those kids. If you fertilize the egg and then it doesn't attach to the wall with the full intent of raising those kids, that's more morally justifiable other than...
And remember, the moral justification here by Charlie Kirk is religious, 100% fundamentalist religion. There is no moral argument without religion to say that when a sperm cell and an egg cell come together, if you destroy that, then it's murder. There's no rational philosophy that does not draw from a fundamentalist religious belief that would ever allow that to be somewhat of a saying or somewhat of a standard, okay? Like in Europe, for example, there's limitations on abortion in Europe. You still cannot get it like whenever you want. You can get it like I think France has like a 15-week or 20-week ban or whatever it might be for elective, at least for elective. But like in these countries, in the UK, they would never have a conversation about how, terminating a zygote or a fetus is murder. They would never have that conversation, really. in Congress or in politics or in their parliament. It's a really uniquely American thing that we talk about it so much.
We're going to throw 6 ones up against the wall and see which ones stick. That one I find to be bordering on eugenics. I know that sounds to be a provocative statement, but it is. Basically, we're going to kill 5 to let 1 live. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And albeit, you guys are going to have a great life because of IVF, and I think that's a beautiful thing.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
I do have another, just like one more. What would it take for you kind of like answered it, but what would it take for you to be like borderline morally okay with IVF?
Yeah,
if we are able to.
I think I've articulated it. It would largely invalidate the IVF. And what I've just articulated would make the IVF outcomes go down dramatically. Because the reason why IVF outcomes are able to be successful is that each round of IVF, if it does not attach to the uterine wall, the doctor says, well, we did 6, let's do 10. And let's do 15. Let's do 25. Now that's extreme, but it does happen where they want a baby so badly, they're just going to throw everything they possibly can.
Single cell organisms do not have rights.
And what ends up happening is then they give the mom a progesterone, which then basically makes the uterine wall, quote unquote, sticky during her time of ovulation, which then can make the baby then attach to the uterine wall. No easy answer. I think so. Last final point. Infertility, I think, is a symptom. It is not in itself a sickness. Infertility, I think, is a symptom of terrible diet, of genetic issues that we're not able to necessarily understand.
Oh my God, dude. I know doctors. It's just like, if you ask doctors about this question, even like fertility doctors, like that focus on that, like they would never just come out and say like, this is this. There's a factor number 1, 2, 3. I know all the reasons why we have a reduction in this thing. There's a reduction in how fertile a woman is or whatever. Like they would never say something so confidently, like so quickly. They always give grounds for nuance and taking their time and clarifying questions. And then Charlie Kirk up here with zero understanding at all, zero medical research, zero medical background, zero formal background at all. But he's so confident to rattle off these things as if they're facts. And that's a big thing about conservatism. Conservatives love talking about every topic. They talk about every topic like they are experts. Okay? They will talk about literally anything. They'll talk about literally anything and say they are experts. It's actually really crazy. The confidence, the totally unjustified confidence conservatives find themselves having. By the way, if you're watching, drop a like, comment, subscribe. If you're on TikTok, drop likes. Please drop likes. Get me in the algorithm. Please donate. Please, 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 please. Okay.